Yes, ma'am, I'm monitoring the chat. They all can see you, or they all can see your screen. Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much, in fact, for inviting me be part of that national expansion plan for national incubation centers that has been initiated, of course, by the ITB and Ministry of Information and Technology, and of course, Government of Sindh. And that collaboration, I'm really happy that such initiatives have been really taken care of, and we are giving much more opportunities to our students, our researchers who belong to different disciplines in engineering, in technologies, in sciences, and they're in fact trying to make their professional alignments towards the entrepreneurship rather being looking for the jobs. They would like to create jobs for the larger communities, and they would like to serve their society. Well, the topic that I would like to talk with you today, it's a combination of few things together, but as has been said by your host, I will mainly talk about the LCI. And LCI is an acronym for Lean Canvas for Invention. But I will not talk about LCI in much more depth because it is something that really need a semester-based course. And I cannot cover this whole in an 1 hour lecture. But yes, what I can do, I can give you in glimpse what it is all about, how I have conceived that idea, and what in fact I'm still doing on that LCI, so that gradually it will become a part of every national incubation center. How this LCI can support another canvases that do exist into the literature, and one of them is BMC, which is Business Model Canvas. How a combination of LCI and Business Model Canvas can in fact create a mechanism that national incubation centers can regularly implement for the capacity building of their startups who are coming up with a good idea for new product design and development based on certain research that ultimately they would like to commercialize and go on towards the technopreneurship. When we say technopreneurship, it means that the startup that you are going to build upon is based on certain technology. And I'm expecting that most of you are somehow been relevant to IT. So information technology is in fact being a ubiquitous technology is going to be underpinning of most of the startups which may come out after this initiative. This is in fact a program that is embedded within the entrepreneurial universities. So what these entrepreneurial universities are, let us learn gradually about these different words that I've just uttered with you. It's about LCI, it's about BMCs, it's about the role of LCI and BMC within the National Incubation Center, and what I'm doing, in fact, particularly to make this course as much as feasible and relevant with the startups, with the entrepreneurs who have been working in the National Incubation Centers. Myself, Dr. Arabella Bhutto, thank you very much for the introduction. You did not mess up with my introduction at all. I am professor and co-director at Mehran University Institute of Science, Technology and Development. In fact, that's the institute where we are offering MBAs, but we are not only the business school, we are also a policy school. So we are doing two dimensions. We are taking a lead in terms of science, technology, innovation policies. And at the same time, we are also producing or working onto the innovation management. So yes, business management, business administration is there, but focus is more on innovation management and entrepreneurship. So having said this, let me move on with my presentation. So how I'll take this journey with you ahead in this 1 hour session. I will first give you a certain concept, very simple concept, because I've just learned that you students are a bit newer in that field. So I will give you a very small nutshell definition of the entrepreneurial universities, what could be the role of national incubation centers are, and at the same time, what literature is talking about their NCI. What are other words that are there in the literature which we are using rather than just calling them as incubation centers? What is the TTO? That is Technology Transfer Office. and the bigger domain of technology transfer office is to take the technologies from the entrepreneurs, from the academic inventors, and then convert it into certain companies. So what these institutions are doing, so how NIC can be helpful for you, how TTOs can be helpful for you. Well, when the entrepreneurs, the startup companies, and the technology managers who are sitting in this national incubation centers, when they interact with each other, what kind of challenges do they feel? So I'm calling some words for them, like I will be calling you students who are working for their startups. I will be calling you academic inventors. Why academic inventors? Because you are coming with your degrees in different disciplines, but from these degrees you would like to extract out some new products, so you like to go for inventions. So you want to go for inventions, you would like to go for the journey of product development, and then from those product development you would like to launch certain companies where technology managers who are sitting in national incubation centers can facilitate you. But again, when you people who are coming from the technology background and the people who are coming from the business background, when they interact with each other, there are certain knowledge asymmetries that halt their communication. And when the communication being halted, it somehow becomes difficult to convert your technologies to the companies. So at that moment, what is the role of LCI, which is Lean Canvas for Invention, that I would share with you. I will also share with you that what I'm working at the moment with regarding to this LCI, there's a project that is being funded by National Science Foundation, and that is also in the United States of America. What are they doing? They've given me a project for 3 years, and in that 3 years project, myself along with my other colleagues in University of Utah, we are building an extensive course, and that course is planned to be designed under the umbrella of innovation and graduate education, and their purpose is to make it a part of curricula for all the postgraduate programs that are there in Pakistan and the other part of the world. And the purpose is to make their LCI part of that curricula so that every student who is learning different subjects relevant to the commercialization, they also learn more about the LCI. There is a channel with my name, it's Arabella Bhutto, and I would appreciate if you all just go have a look to that channel and subscribe to the channel. I have so far only uploaded 2 videos in it, but it is about all the episodes that will go and talk intensively about the course that I will gradually be teaching through the LCI. So of course, in today's 1 hour session, I cannot teach you everything about the LCI, but yes, I can give you a resource that is available on YouTube that will gradually be updated, and you can continuously be in touch with this channel so that you can update your learning in terms of LCI gradually. So let us start with the basic definitions that I've just informed you that I will be sharing with you. What in fact is the entrepreneurial university? When we say it's an entrepreneurial university, what do we really mean by that? Well, the universities in their history has also evolved. Back dates is like when universities were only seen as teaching institutions, and the role of the universities were somehow being relevant to the R&D. So they were doing research, they were doing some developments, they're making research papers published, for they are creating the new knowledge for the world, where people were reading it, converting it to the courses, and teachers were delivering it into their classrooms. But then gradually it was realized that only doing this teaching activity or conducting certain research without having any social impact is not really a responsibility of universities. So in the advanced world, what had happened that the teaching and R&D institutions have gradually converted into the innovation and entrepreneurship development. And then was realized that innovation, commercialization, and economic and social development, all of them has in fact been considered as a major part of the universities. And the universities who are doing it, who are converting their research that is not only being carried out into their laboratories, but they are bringing companies out of those laboratory-based research, which started to term as entrepreneurial universities. So these universities, in fact, are not only coming up with students as its outcome, because university's outcome is that we have produced students, we have produced undergrad students, we have produced master's students, we have produced PhD students. So we are not only producing these students as university, the entrepreneurial universities at the same time are producing companies. that we normally call as startups, and that what you all are intending to do in your academic career that you're moving ahead. So once it was realized that entrepreneurial university or entrepreneurship, in fact, has been identified as a third mission of universities to take care along with teaching and research. So it was also identified that who are those actors who in fact can really convert that research component into the entrepreneurial startups. And the focus again went to the science and engineering and technology based education. Why? Because these people have been highlighted as those people who have the capacity. So through their knowledge, through their technology based knowledge, they can start coming up with certain solutions. The solutions of the problems that they conceive into their surroundings. They see that their environment, their society is full of problems. And because of those problems, these problems in fact help them think in the directions that how technology can help them developing certain new products, coming up with certain new ideas who can solve their indigenous problems, rather than only being looking towards the advanced world for bringing or taking their technologies on the turnkey basis and start solving our local problem, in fact, is not sufficient. So the idea came out that, well, these STEM graduates, we call them STEM graduates because they are science, technology, engineering, and management. These STEM graduates, they start working and they start utilizing their knowledge of science and technology, and then start converting into innovation commercialization. And it has been seen a very viable system or very viable mechanism in the advanced world. Though we as a developing country are still struggling into this whole phenomena, but of course it is no longer a new phenomena for the developing countries as well. And national incubation centers is again one of the example or one of the mechanism that has been taken initiative to make this process more smooth and more suitable. It has also been observed that the STEM graduates have a very deep knowledge base and they even can think independently and more critically in terms of looking to their surroundings for exploration of problems, and then with the help of science and technologies coming up with the solution of these problems. As I mentioned earlier, that national incubation centers are in fact being designed to help these STEM graduates, which of course include everyone. When we say technology, IT is there, other technologies are there, nanotechnology is there, civil, construction, electrical, mechanical, you just name it. All these different disciplines, all these different disciplines, when students from those disciplines combine together, they in fact when sit together, when their brains work together, they start thinking of certain problems and again thinking of certain solutions with the help of new product design and development, which ultimately they can launch into the market with their own companies, or we are calling them as in startups. So as I said, the National Incubation Center, in fact, are performing a role of technology transfer officers. And technology transfer officers being defined as, again, a mechanism of the particular entrepreneurial universities. So entrepreneurial universities have these offices established. And again, purpose is that all the academic inventions that are carrying out into the laboratories of those universities can somehow be converted into these startups, somehow being converted into the commercializable services. Somehow intellectual properties can be generated out of it. And the students and the teachers and the team members of the National Incubation Centers can start making money out of it. What these managers who are working into the National Incubation Centers are doing, in fact, they are also working as an agent who can bring these different actors of triple helix, we call like university, industry, and government together. So what do? In fact, they help the students who are sitting into National Incubation Centers. They help them create their knowledge. They help them convert their knowledge into an intellectual property, because if students are coming up with the ideas, they're coming up with good papers, they're coming up with good problem solutions, they can get a copyright onto it because it's their own intellectual property. It is their property that is coming or being developed from their intellect, because they were thinking, they were coming up with an idea of good problem solutions. So they help them, in fact, to get that intellectual property right onto their ideas from the government, because IPO is one of the institution in Pakistan serving for this purpose.
Okay.
At the same time, what these national incubation centers are doing. In fact, they're also helping these university students to launch their companies into the market, take them closer to the industry, and return also earning some royalty for the students and at the same time for these national incubation centers. There's little disturbance, so I would appreciate if everybody please mute your mics. Thank you. Okay, so again, what these technology managers are doing. So these technology managers, in fact, are facilitating in the journey of these startups in terms of gaining the intellectual property rights and also helping them to bring their technologies or bring their ideas or bring their products to the market. So what do they do? In fact, they help them facilitating to move gradually on the technology commercialization path. And here they help them seeking more fundings, help them giving them proper mentoring. And again, today's session could be seen as one of those mentoring sessions that could help our students to learn from each other, to learn from the teachers who are around, who can tell you again how to do, what to do, and how to move your journey onwards. They can help them give some facilities, like because you're sitting into certain offices, you're working there, your team members are there are some mentors there are some technology managers surrounding you. So they're there to help you out. So they help, in fact, in this entire process of technology commercialization. But there's extensive processes involved there. There's an extensive SOPs are required to make this process really workable. But this is how, in fact, what they are doing, they're facilitating. You can see this is just a pictorial representation. And in this pictorial representation, you can see different products are coming from the left-hand side of your screen. From the left-hand side, different products are going through the process of scrutiny. And that scrutiny is being done by these technology managers in different teams. You can see the different team members are there. There is one circle or one, you can say it's like one team is working on one project, maybe another team is working on another project, another team is working on third project. And while working onto these entire projects, they are really making certain decisions that whether the company or the idea that a student is coming up with, whether it's a feasible, whether it's a doable, whether it's a viable for market or not. And then if it's not viable for the market, they again help students to make their idea being presentable to the market, thinking on several other parameters on which even National Incubation Center managers are required to be trained as well. So this is how it goes on. And what in fact I have done, what chance did I get when I was working into the technology transfer offices at University of Utah? Well, I learned that there are various academic inventors are coming and visiting these technology transfer offices. And when they were coming to visit for this technology transfer offices, they're coming up with their own products. They were coming up with their own inventions. And they were bringing their invention to the technology managers and giving it to them and asking them to convert it into a company. And what was happening at that moment that technology managers, because they did not have the technology background, they had to struggle a lot. They had to ask several questions from these academic inventors that, okay, your technology looks fantastic, it's really good, but whether it's a viable for market or not. And the realization that I was like observing several cases, and I learned that, well, the technology developers, when they are coming up with an idea, they do not have really touched the market earlier. And because they have not really touched the market earlier, they did not have an idea whether the solution they are proposing, whether the new product they are proposing, whether it's already available into the market or not. So I have found some disconnect between, or some knowledge asymmetries, I must call them, between the technology developers and the technology managers. And it's everywhere. So when I've been talking about the advanced countries, you can imagine that what is happening into the underdeveloped countries like us. Of course, when you as a technology developer will be coming, maybe you see technology developer could be a very big name, but still when you are coming up with your idea, that idea has a problem solution because you are trying to solve certain problems with your own knowledge of science, with your own knowledge of technology, with your own knowledge of engineering. And then what you are trying to do, you are trying to use your knowledge and give it certain shape of a product. The problem here is that whether your product is really viable for market or not. And here the role of National Incubation Center and the technology managers who are sitting there, they can really perform their role. I observed that what they can help in terms of motivating the academic inventors, should I call you all as an academic inventor, or I can call you all as technology developers, or I can call you as like product developers. So what has been happening there, that they help you to establish your relationship with industry experts. They help you to let you understand more about your technology in terms of market viability, in terms of looking at it as a product that can really be ready to be sold into the market, to be shared with the investors who can later on be paying you more money in return of the equity that you can share with their big firms, with their big companies. So this is how it goes on. I
Okay, so
learned a very I learned a very interesting scenario there. I seen that people were sitting facing each other. So one of them was the technology developer and the other one was the technology manager. So the purpose was to convert the idea that academic inventor or technology developer is bringing to a company, to a startup. So idea is coming from the students, idea is coming from the team of the students who are working on some technology, who are working on some product, and they are facilitating them into in their endeavors to really bring their product into the market. So I just learned there was an interesting example, and there was an inventor who came to visit the technology transfer office. And he said, I made up a technology that's a widget and that's a product. And what I'm calling it, it's like di-nanogistic, biomodulating energy, conversation, medical, oscilloscopy combinator. And it was like, wow, now what is it? Because it sounds fascinating, but what are we going to do with this extraordinary technology? What are we going to do with this extraordinary product? So the technology manager said, yeah, it's good, it's really good, but it's not really making any sense to me. So as a technology manager, when it's not making any sense to me, I am a bit worried whether it's going to make certain sense to the people who are out there in the society who may think of using your product in order to solve their problem. So how they can solve their problem, how they can really accept your technology if they do not understand it. So at that moment, I realized that there should be something that help technology developer to make their work in such a way that technology managers accept it readily, and not only they accept it readily, but the market accept their product readily too. So in order to understand that, I realized that certain knowledge symmetries, and when I'm saying knowledge symmetries means a certain gap, it's a gap between these two entities, because these two entities carry different kind of knowledge. So I thought that because of that knowledge asymmetry, what is happening that these extraordinary inventions are somehow not reaching to the market. And because when they are not reaching to the market, maybe they are very extraordinary work. Maybe you can come up with an extraordinary product. But because it has not considered some of the market viability and feasibility components earlier in the phase of development, unfortunately, it's getting difficult to making that product available or being reachable into the market. So what was required here, the requirement here was to come up with an idea, to come up with an entire course, which I can share with you in maybe a semester long, but even it can be worked out as like 3, 4, or even a week long, extensive hands-on workshop that help again the startup companies to learn how they can really think of their ideas, how they can really find out what is the problem out there, and then how can really they can develop the solutions for it. So I realized that this lean canvas when mentioned can bridge the gap of knowledge asymmetries which is existing at the moment between the technology developers, or I should call them like product developers, and the technology managers who will be facilitating them into the journey of converting their ideas into market viable products. So if you see again to this, where I'm saying that it's a knowledge asymmetries that exist, and these knowledge asymmetries can be bridged if we adapt this lean canvas for invention. And with the adaptation of that lean canvas for invention, the grad cross, which I was just showing you, that was stopping these inventions to reach to the market, can even pay a path, a feasible path, a doable path through which these technologies can gradually move on and reach to the market and convert it into the form of certain good businesses or startups. So if you're a technology manager, or if you're or your product developer can come up with a simple idea so that it can be briefed to the technology managers and also be presentable to the investors, presentable to the market outside. Then it's more feasible, more doable. And people who you are intending to sell your product would also find it feasible and easy, acceptable for them. So if your product developer is saying, I made something that is called a sliced bread, rather than giving it an extensive name of biocolor, so copied, nanotechnology, I don't know what. So it's rather if you've been saying that your technology manager would be saying, right, it's a great, it's fantastic. And even you can use that same name for your company. The same name can be utilized for your startup. So purpose is to make this process of moving a knowledge between the product developers and the technology developers, making it more simple, making it more understandable for both the entities so that they can help you out, these managers can help you out to convert your ideas, convert your whole concepts, helping you to build your startup companies gradually. What I have done, in fact, in order to come up with this lean canvas for invention, well, in fact, I did an extensive interviews with the academic inventors, extensive interviews with the product developers, extensive interviews with the technology managers. And at the same time, I've looked up to certain invention disclosures who at a piece of paper, you must be writing certain proposals. You may be writing down some of your ideas, and then you're sharing your ideas with those technology managers. This is what do we want to do. Rather than being there only sitting along around the table all the time, you're thinking, you are brainstorming, you are coming up with good ideas with all your team members, and within your team members, your technology managers may be helping you out, giving you certain mentors, giving you certain sessions for capacity building and some other activities also. So learning from these different knowledge resources that includes the interviews and reading of certain extensive invention disclosures, I gave it a shape. I gave a shape to that lean canvas invention, which has been extracted out from the business model canvas, and at the same time, it embedded certain research processes. And when they combined together, the lean canvas invention took in fact a shape of 11 components. And those 11 components has further been segregated into two big sections. 5 components, I call them like as umbrella component, and the 6 sub-components being created out of it. But altogether, they make 11 components. And those 11 components, they're not only components, I must say, but these 11 components have extensive checklists available that help the academic inventors or product developers to go through their process, to learn what could be there in order to come up with a market viable product, what should be there, what should be considered, what should be eliminated. So there's an extensive checklist for all the components given. But then it's not only the checklists, not only the components, but for every component, there are extensive hands-on activities designed. And when you've been going and adopting these extensive hand-on activities, these activities again helping you while you are sitting with your team members, while you're sitting with your mentors, to learn again gradually how to convert your idea into the market viable products. So this has been learned when I was looking to these knowledge asymmetries that were existing, and I was looking to different challenges that they face. I would like to give you a glimpse of it first, and then I'll come back to it. This is how it looks. When I'm saying it's lean canvas for invention, this is how it looks. You can see it is on a canvas. It's on a single sheet, but that is on that single sheet. It has these 11 components. I can name these components one by one, but as I said, that I cannot teach all of this LCI in just 1 hour session. But what I can do is to just give you the names, but I can also leave you with the YouTube channel that I said that I would appreciate all of you who subscribe. And you'll find that gradually it will be updated with new videos. So far, there are 2 videos there, but if you'll see them, it will also tell you certain stories about the LCI. And then gradually you start talking about the components. So how these components, in fact, been extracted out? How I came up with this idea that there should be component with the name of problem identification. There should be a component with the name of literature search. There should be a component with the name of existing solutions, market landscape, novelty, key resources, funding, team capacities, research outcome. You can see there's a Z, there's a Z, and that is very much reflected on the screen. In fact, shows you a process of this LCI. So this LCI starts with a box of problem identification. It goes up, move to the literature search, then to existing solutions, then to market landscape, then to novelty, and then it comes down. It comes down to the most feasible research question that you can design when you are thinking to come up with your idea through your research, which you can answer in a shape of product design and development. And then how you can adopt different procedures through which you can take on that journey onward. And then moving from there, from methodology to the key resources, to the funding, to the team capacities, and then coming back to the research outcome. So this is how it looks. And as I was mentioning to you that these 11 components have extensive checklists for all of those components. But again, all of these components have extensive hand-on activities. So how, in fact, I have been reached to this? Well, I reached by asking many questions from these academic inventors and from these technology managers. And believe me, I reached to 101 questions. I identified that there are 101 questions that are need to be discussed between technology developers and technology managers when they really want to convert the idea into a company. Well, I cannot talk about again for all of those one-on-one questions, but I have just picked and chose some of the challenges that I found there and for which I have proposed a solution which has taken a shape of LCI later on. So I've learned from their interactions that when any technology developer or product developer is thinking of an idea, there's somehow disconnect between the real world practical problem. They are using their academic knowledge. They're saying that yes, we know this theory, we know these concepts, we know these technologies are there, but somehow there is a disconnect between the real world and their academic knowledge. So what was required at that moment is to connect the product developer with the real world very quickly at a very earlier stages, at the very earliest stages when idea has been conceived. So when the idea has been conceived, I would suggest not to confine yourself within the laboratories, sit down there and just do the experiment. Don't do that. You also need to do it, but at the same time, go out of your laboratories and try to see who is out there in the real world who can really use your idea that you are coming up at the moment while sitting into your laboratory dimensions. So try to interact with multiple stakeholders at the earlier time where you are being going through a process of conceiving an idea for your companies. Try to interact with many people as possible, because what normally happens that if you come up with an extraordinary product and that product is not being designed explicitly to meet the requirements of your stakeholders. And when I'm saying stakeholder, it means it's not only the customers, there are multiple stakeholders. That has also been reflected into the LCI in more depth, that what kind of stakeholders could be there. There could be your end users who will use your product, but at the same time, there could be certain regulators. The regulators who can make it sure that whatever the product you are coming up is meeting certain standards, it meeting certain quality parameters. There could be some industry who may be interested in your product later on. So industry itself can play a role of stakeholders. So again, they're all different actors. These different stakeholders have been discussed in more depth into the LCM. So the first problem or first challenge that I've realized that it was happening that the people were working very good in laboratories, but they are not coming out of their laboratories very frequently. And because they're not doing it, it was a problem with the design of the product that they're coming up. Maybe they're not really meeting the exact requirements. The second problem that I've observed that we want our company to get some intellectual property rights. We want, and we talk about that IP, the patents, the copyright, the trademark, the logo. But again, it is not being taught it's not being taught as a subject to those academic inventors, to those product developers, and their importance is not really being shared with them. Now, because their importance is not really being shared with them, again, they are coming up with an idea without thinking that this idea can be sold. And if they can be sold, it is their property. It is something that they own. And if they own something, they can earn out of it. So again, I found that they are not really looking to that literature at the earlier phase. They are good in reading research articles. They are good in reading maybe reports. They are good in searching of web. but they are not really looking to a very advanced literature that is already available, and that's about the patents. Maybe for every technology, we do not need to learn from the patents, but we're talking about exactly the design of something, design of a product, or design even of a process, that yes, patents do contribute a lot, and these patents, in fact, once being commercialized or once being licensed, take a shape of existing solutions. And if solutions are already out there, there's no need to create that same solution. Yes, unless we are to bring certain innovation into it, bring certain change into it, and we see that bringing certain changes can make your product more novel. So there was one another challenge that I observed that was happening. Again, I would say that existing solutions, if they're already out there, it is important to look what is already existing out there rather than like creating the same wheel again and again. There's no purpose of creating something that is already available until unless you can really bring some changes into it. There was again some gap that we normally say there's a gap between academia and industry. It's a normal debate nowadays. We say that we need to bridge a gap between academia and industry. But again, how you can do that? Well, we can do it when you frequently visit that industries, not only as a student, but as a faculty member from those universities too. So if you've been frequently visiting with your mentors to those industries and really see what are their problems, and if your research can solve their problems, again, that could be considered as another good way of coming up with your ideas or looking to your startups for your future. Apart from all these 4 or 5 challenges that I just discussed with you, there are several other challenges being observed. And after observing several of these challenges, in fact, I've organized this entire information into certain groups. I gave them some codes, and from those codes, I've reached to that themes. And then those themes, in fact, took a shape of this LCI. So you can see there's an extensive work that was in the foundation of only coming up with this canvas, with the coming up with these number of components, with coming up with these elements, which I said are 11 in number. And all these components, again, if you see this whole lean canvas, it's just answering 3 basic questions. It is answering 3 basic questions that is starting from what, going to why, and then coming to how. So the basic question that in fact it is answering, the first question that is answering, it's in fact what is the problem that your company or your startup is intending to solve. So if you just name, if you take a name of most of the startups that are out there, and we are seeing them on a daily basis. Just name like Food Panda. So what Food Panda has done, they came up with a platform, and that platform has has some revolutionary changes in our society. For those restaurants, it was not easy to reach. For the large number of customers, if it was not easy to reach to multiple hotels or restaurants in that COVID duration, Food Panda made it possible to bring that food to your doorstep. And Food Panda does not have any hotel of their own. They do not have like their own menus. But what they are doing, they're allowing these restaurants to publicize their menu on their platform and only making this platform available to these hotels and to these restaurants. They're opening up different venues for these hotels, and they're also opening up different venues for the customers who want to have food readily available at their doorsteps. So nothing has really, if you say it's no big changes have been done in terms of the menus has not been changed, the new hotels have not been opened, the new customers have not been created, but rather what have been done is to just integrate them through a platform and coming up with a simple change, which I'm saying simple, but of course is need a technology development beside it. Developing that platform was not easy, but Food Panda did that, and they're doing it marvelous activities. Even I was looking to a paper, and I saw in the news that they were proposing that they would like to come up with the drones for the delivery of food to the doorsteps now, rather than bringing them into the bikes with bike riders. They would like to adopt the drones for the delivery of the food. But though it's not been finalized, it's not really been finalized at this stage, again, because of some regulatory people, but they were talking about it. So you can see they've been bringing different ideas. They're trying to convert, they're trying to make that platform available for different people. So I was saying that this LCI, in fact, is answering 3 simple questions. And in these 3 simple questions, The first question, as I was sharing with you, it's about what is the problem that is need to be solved in the society. So what is the problem that your startup or your company or your product can solve and that can ease the life of your customers? Now the second question being raised after this what is why it is necessary to solve that problem. If existing solutions are already out there, can't those be borrowed and can't these be used in order to solve that problem? If still in the presence of existing solutions, the problems has not been solved, it means again there's a room, there's an opportunity for your startup to take some place. Right? So again, the second question that this LCI help you answer doing these extensive exercises is that why it is really required to solve that problem now. And then third question that LCI would help you to answer is about how are you going to solve that problem. So with these 11 components, these three simple questions would be answered. But again, for answering these three simple questions, you need to look up to these 11 components in more depth with the help of 11 checklists designed for every component separately, and again, hands-on multiple activities that would be able or that would enable the student to answer the question that has been written into different boxes of the element of LCM. Now, for example, you can see there are few questions written in the box of problem identification. Few questions are written in the box of existing solution. A question is written in the novelty box. Few questions are there for key resources, for funding, for team capacities. So these questions can be answered when you will learn those activities in more depth. So let's move on further. I had a chance to share this work in some international and national conferences, and also a research paper also been came out of it, which I can share you. But if you have an access to the journals, to the IEEE journal, you can have an access to that paper. Or if I will get, if it's really required, I can share that paper with you. There will be a good again resource for you to have a read it and see how further it can use or it can be helpful for you to move on to a journey forward. The course has also been designed, and that course is available online. But I would say that course can be taught in an extensive 1 week long workshop, or it can be divided into like semester based course. Well, I taught that course 3-4 times, and I had a chance to teach that course in University of Utah, where I have taught it 3 times. And once I taught it to the postgraduate students, then I taught it to the teams, to the startup teams. And then I also taught it to the professors who were about to send their ideas or send their proposals for the national grants to different funding organization. And of course, one of them was National Science Foundation. So I've been teaching. Is mic problem, please? So I taught that course at University of Utah, but not only at the University of Utah. I've also taught that course to the PhD students and the master's students in Mehran University. And I had a chance to teach to like 70-80 students in a PhD class. And interestingly, those 70-80 students were belonging to different disciplines. Yani there were disciplines, there were civil engineering students there were mechanical engineering students there were IT students there were telecommunication students there, the software developers there. So we had a very interesting kind of interaction with nearly 70-80 students, all like PhD scholars, and they were thinking of their new product design and development. So in that process of new product design and development thinking procedure, this course helped them to devise or develop their ideas or give them certain shape, which they presented into the initial seminars for their initial seminars to their PhDs. And in fact, they are still working onto their ideas. Now you can see they are just a glimpse of certain hands-on activities on your screen. But again, they are not limited to these 4 or 5 pages. There are several of these activities that need to be taken care when we be going on into the process, when we've been learning this whole LCI gradually one by one. This says expected outcome from this LCI. Now you can see that for every box, each and every box of that LCI, there would be certain answers. And for every startup team, every individual startup team could have their own answers. But of course, they need to understand that what problem they are going to solve and why it is really required to solve that problem, whether it's feasible, whether it does have some novelty feature into it or not. And at the same time, if they want to really convert it into a company, what kind of resources they required. Do you really need certain funding, or whatever you have in your hand, would that be feasible? Would that be possible for you to use bird in hand concept? There's several other theories, several other concepts that are already available out there. So this is I was in fact expecting from this LCI that I learned by delivering that course to the multiple places. And I also I wanted to know their feedback too. I wanted to learn from them that how did they really see whether they found that LCI usable for them, they found it acceptable for them. This again, Mike is thank you. Okay, so I asked them that do they really see this whole training module, that extensive training module, that is really saw it useful for them, they really saw it acceptable for them, they really can comment that it has really guided them into the process of their academic inventions. And almost like 80% plus, like 80% or 85%, I got responses from them. Yes, it does help them to really think of an idea that can be converted into a product that is market viable and can take a shape of startup. So what in fact overall what have been found from there that you as a startup team in fact need to find out the real world problems. You need to look up to the opportunities that are out there, and then you try to interact with your stakeholders as much quickly as possible, because when you interact with your stakeholder, they in fact will be giving you certain ideas, they will polish your ideas, and from the discussions with them you can learn even more, and then you can shape and reshape your ideas, and you can conceive your ideas which are more aligned to the societal problems, social problems rather. So you can look up to the variety of literature that is available, because without reading, I would say you cannot really go on. Even if you are thinking to come up with a simple idea, push for your technology that you need to use. You need to learn certain techniques. You need to equip yourself with certain knowledge. So do extensive readings, learn a lot, work a lot, think a lot, brainstorming session, discuss a lot. So that you need to do at an earlier level. And then there's one more interesting concept here that we talk about technology readiness level. Now that technology readiness level moves from 1 to 9. From the 1, you can say it's a very immature kind of idea that maybe you have it with you when you've been thinking to come up with your startups. But then gradually what would happen that your immature idea would gradually take certain shapes when you will move on into a journey. And once it will go on to level 2, level 3, or level 4, it will be converted into a prototype. And once it will be converted into a prototype, then it will be available to the market at a smaller scale first, and then at a larger scale first, and then scaling up process will go on until you reach to level number 9. So this is also something that is not really been taught, and this is something that one need to understand about it. And in order to do this all, of course, the LCI, which is a new knowledge structure, and that knowledge structure help startups in their pre-commercialization process, because it has been proposed as a mechanism for bridging this knowledge asymmetries that may exist between the product developers and technology managers. So this whole course, as I said, it could be divided into a extensive long workshop, like maybe week long or too long, because I had a chance to teach that to NAHI, that is an Academy of Higher Education Commission. And there, in fact, I took like a day long. Again, I was not able to, of course, cover everything, but then I just gave them a glimpse of few activities and a glimpse of some checklist and glimpse of this LCI. We did certain activities there too. So this is how what I've seen, and what I'm intending at the moment is how I'm taking this journey forward. Well, I am at the moment teaching that course to the master's students, to the PhD students, to this extensive trainings also, which I can also share with you all in next session if that's really required. Even in all the national incubation centers that are working in Pakistan, there's an extensive course design. It can be delivered to different incubation centers, to different ORIC offices also. So that's readily available, which I can share if it's really required by them. Along with this, what I'm doing, I am writing a book on it. And that book again would be considered as a manual, an entire training manual. And that manual will be handed over during that training process, because it will be seen as an extensive resource that will help you to gradually move on from the idea, from conceptual concept building to the product design and development. And I also making these video lectures, and these video lectures would be considered as an added resource, and that added resource will help you, at least as an all-time available resource, free of cost. You can just have a look to that. You can see it can really guide you, it can really help you. And then purpose is to bridge these two different kind of canvases. That is itself, it's a lean canvas we mentioned and the business model canvas together. Because there are certain components which are considered into business model canvas, but they're coming very late. And because when they're coming very late, again, the problem of knowledge asymmetries that is happening. And in order to resolve those problems, LCI is in fact creating and helping the technology managers and product developers to bridge those gaps in between them. So as I was telling to you, there's a channel and there are videos there available. So I would suggest you to please have a look to that channel and subscribe it. You'll find it good resource. Free, of course, there's no harm subscribing it. So at the moment, there are only two videos. Episode 1 and episode 2 has been launched. I'm working on episode 3 and episode 4 parallelly. So inshallah, sooner or later, they would be there. I'm expecting there may be like mm, more than 20 plus episodes, but they would all be considered as a good resource for you students. You can have access to that. You can read, you can learn from it all the time, available to you. And at the moment, what I am in addition, what has been happening is I would suggest to different incubation centers that, and even to different universities also, that we start teaching this LCI as a part of curricula, to different postgraduate institutions, to different ORIC offices, maybe again in a form of workshop, as I was saying earlier. Because parallelly, what is happening, as I mentioned earlier, that 3 years extensive project is underway, and that is funded by National Science Foundation. And that National Science Foundation, through that National Science Foundation, I, along with my other team members in University of Utah, what we are doing, we are really giving it, this LCI, an entire shape, a shape of a detailed curricula that will, of course, be published in an extensive book that will ultimately be a part of curricula after 3 years anyway. But before that, even we can embed, we can learn from this technique that is available for all of us, that would help us to convert, to conceive certain ideas that can really based, they have already been relying on to our social problems. And we have been starting the journey with the identification of those real world practical problems, and extracting out where is the possibility, where is an opportunity, how we can really think or convert our ideas into these small concepts, and then what kind of product can be developed out of it, and then gradually how it can move on. So this is all I think what we have to share with you today. I think I'm within my time. I have 5 more minutes, so we can have certain discussion, we can have certain questions. So with this, I disband, and over to you, please.